Everybody calm down. I am about to say something that is going to make half of you reach for that dislike button immediately. And honestly, I am totally okay with that. Picture this. It is the third period. The Islanders are hemmed in their own zone, exhausted forwards, a hostile crowd, and a team that desperately needs someone to do something. And then a kid, an 18-year-old kid, picks up the puck behind his own net, reads the ice in about half a second, accelerates through the neutral zone like the rules of physics are just a polite suggestion, blows past the first forechecker, the second, cuts inside the offensive blue line, and creates a dangerous look that leaves the entire arena completely silent for just a beat before it explodes. That kid is a defenseman. His name is Matthew Schaefer. He plays for the New York Islanders. He is 18 years old. And I'm telling you right now, with full confidence and full accountability, he is the closest thing to Connor McDavid this sport has produced in 10 years. Go ahead, argue with me, I will wait. Here's what I know. That play I just described? McDavid made that exact play in his rookie season. Same crossover burst out of his own zone. Same north to south read through the neutral zone. Same absolute confusion on the opposing bench. The difference is that McDavid is a forward, and everyone expected that from him. Schaefer is a defenseman. Nobody is supposed to be doing this from the blue line. Nobody. And yet, here we are. Before I break down exactly how and why this comparison is earned, do me one quick favor right now. If you have watched Schaefer play even once this season, drop a number in the comments below, 1 through 10, 10 being full McDavid level, and tell me what you think his ceiling actually is. I am coming back to your answers at the end of this video. And if you are new here, hit subscribe, because this is exactly what we do every single week on Blue Line Bulletin. All right, let us get into it. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Comparing anyone to McDavid is a dangerous game. People have tried it before. Prospects have come through the draft with massive hype, enormous expectations, and the kind of highlight reels that make scouts go quiet in press boxes. And some of them have been very good. Some of them have been great. But the McDavid comparison has a way of setting a bar so high that almost everyone who gets put underneath it ends up looking smaller, not bigger. So why is Schaefer different? Because the comparison is not about raw point totals. It is not about whose skating looks flashiest on a highlight reel. It is not even really about goals, though we are going to talk about those goals because there are a lot of them, and they are genuinely insane. The comparison is about something more specific than that. It is about how a player moves the game itself, how he bends the structure of the opponent, how he creates situations that the other team simply did not prepare for and cannot solve in real time. That is what McDavid does to forwards. That is what Schaefer is beginning to do to defensemen on opposing teams, and he is doing it as a defenseman himself. That is the part that is genuinely unprecedented. Let me give you one number to anchor this. Through 61 games this season, Schaefer ranks top 3 among all NHL defensemen in puck possession, zone exits, zone entries, and open ice dekes. All 4 categories, simultaneously, as a teenager, in his first NHL season. The advanced metrics have him ranked 6th in total contribution among all defensemen in the entire league. Not 6th among rookies, 6th in the league. A 10-year veteran would be proud of that resume. Schaefer is doing it before he can legally order a drink in most of this country. But here's the thesis I want to leave you with before we go deeper, because I want you to hold this idea in your head for the rest of this video. I am not here to tell you Schaefer is simply good. I am here to make the case that Matthew Schaefer represents the next evolutionary step in how defensemen play this sport. The same way Connor McDavid changed how we think about forwards in 2015. This is not just a breakout season from a gifted rookie. This is a position being redefined in real time. And if you care about hockey at all, you need to be paying attention to what is happening on Long Island right now. To really understand what Schaefer is doing, you have to go back, not just a few years. You have to go back to the beginning of how speed itself was understood in this sport, because what is happening right now did not arrive out of nowhere. It is the result of decades of evolution, and Schaefer is the latest and most dramatic step in that progression. In the 1990s, the fastest players in hockey were essentially weapons with one setting. They were straight-line rockets. Pavel Bure is the clearest example of what that era produced. The man was supernatural. He would get the puck on the wing, ignite, and by the time the defenseman processed what was happening, Bure was already at the net. He scored 60 goals twice for the Vancouver Canucks. He lost in the Stanley Cup Finals in 1994. He was electric in a way that genuinely made people stop breathing. But here's the thing about Bure and players like him. The game gave them room to operate. Defenses were structured differently. The neutral zone was more open. If you could outskate a defenseman with one good move and a straight burst, you could create a goal almost by yourself. Speed was a weapon because most players simply did not have it at that level. Bure had it in abundance, and the game rewarded him enormously for it. But his speed was essentially a straight line, point A to point B faster than anyone else. Then came the bridge era. By the early 2000s, players like Marian Gaborik on the Minnesota Wild were pushing that model forward in a specific way. Gaborik was smaller, lighter, and he used crossovers differently. He would accelerate into his top speed using aggressive crossover steps rather than settling immediately into long strides. Watch the old footage and you can see it clearly. He is generating speed on every single step during his acceleration phase. More ice contact, more push, more momentum built before he ever reached full stride. But even Gaborik at full speed eventually settled into those long strides. The crossovers were his launch sequence, not his cruise control. And that meant that at top speed he was moving in a more predictable line. Defenses could read his trajectory, they could calculate the gap, they could set their feet and prepare. Then in 2015, Connor McDavid entered the NHL and changed the entire conversation. What McDavid did was refuse to stop. He basically never settles into long strides. He maintains crossover mechanics even at full sprint, which does two things simultaneously that no one had fully combined before at his level. First, it gives him a higher sustained top-end speed if your legs and your conditioning allow it, which his clearly do. Second, and this is the part that makes him impossible to defend, it keeps him constantly generating lateral movement. He is not moving in a straight line even when he looks like he is. He is weaving, bending, shifting his angle with every crossover step, which means a defender setting a gap against McDavid is guessing at a target that is continuously relocating. That deception is why McDavid is not just a great scorer. It is why he is the greatest player of all time. His speed is not a destination. It is a weapon he carries through every single zone, bending the structure of the opposing team before he even arrives in the offensive zone. He makes defensemen make decisions before they are ready, and then he punishes whatever decision they make. That was 2015. 10 years later, Matthew Schaefer walks into the NHL and the crossover mechanics are identical. The north to south read is identical. The ability to process the game at full speed and make the right decision before the defense can organize is identical. The difference is the position, and that difference changes everything. Let us talk about what Schaefer is actually doing on the ice this season, because the numbers are one thing and the film is another, and together they paint a picture that should be making every scout in the league lose sleep. Start with the skating itself. Schaefer leads all NHL defensemen in speed bursts of 22 miles per hour or more, not top speed in a single sprint, repeated high-speed bursts over the course of a game. That is an endurance and recovery distinction that matters enormously. Any elite athlete can run one fast sprint. The players who change games are the ones who can do it again and again and again, in the third period of a tight game when everyone else is running on empty. But the number that matters more than the speed data is what Schaefer does at that speed. Because speed without processing is just athleticism, and the NHL is full of fast players who do not change games. What makes Schaefer genuinely terrifying is that his decision-making does not slow down when his legs speed up. He is reading the ice at 22 miles per hour the same way most players read it standing still. Watch how he handles the F1, the first forechecker attacking him as he exits his own zone. Most defensemen at this age, even talented ones, retreat, reset, find a safe outlet. Schaefer beats the F1 with a crossover burst and immediately the geometry of the ice shifts. He is now past the first layer of pressure with speed to burn, and the opposing team has to scramble their neutral zone structure because the math just changed on them. He has created a numbers advantage before he has crossed center ice. Pair that with a forward like Matt Barzal and the problem compounds. Now the opposing defense has to decide, do you respect Schaefer as a primary threat or do you cheat toward Barzal? If you account for both of them, you have no one else. If you choose one, the other one scores. That is not a rookie creating pressure by accident. That is a teenager manipulating defensive decision-making with the sophistication of a 10-year veteran. And then sometimes he just does it by himself entirely. The solo rush is something that defensemen at the NHL level almost never do outside of the absolute elite of the position. You do not see it because defensemen are not supposed to be in that situation. They are not supposed to have the acceleration to beat a forechecker cleanly, the vision to identify the open lane before it closes, and the skating ability to carry that momentum all the way to a dangerous look at the other end. Quinn Hughes does it. Lane Hudson does it. Both of them are under 6 feet tall. Schaefer is doing it with a bigger frame and the same crossover-driven acceleration, and it is creating moments that feel genuinely surreal to watch in real time. His acceleration out of his own end with those crossovers is as good as any defenseman in the sport. Not top 5. As good as any. That is not a scouting opinion. That is what the tracking data shows. Now, let us talk about the goals, because 20 goals from an 18-year-old defenseman in his rookie NHL season is not a footnote. It is the headline. Schaefer set the all-time record for goals scored by an 18-year-old defenseman, passing Hall of Famers on the way to do it. And the way he is scoring them reveals something important about how his game is constructed. He crashes his own net after every single shot. Almost without exception, after Schaefer puts a puck on goal, he is the first player to the rebound. Every time. That is a Bobby Orr instinct. Orr understood that the shot was the beginning of a sequence, not the end of it, and that the player who committed hardest to the net front after releasing owned the next chance. Schaefer has that same understanding built in at 18. His signature move is burning down the right wing, dropping a shoulder and driving hard to the net front with a power move that defensemen simply are not supposed to make. That is a power forward move. It belongs in the toolkit of a 6'2" winger with an attitude problem, not a rookie defenseman in his first NHL season. And yet Schaefer does it regularly enough that it is now something opposing coaches have to put in their game plans. The result is that he currently ranks second among all NHL defensemen in high danger chances at even strength. He is not collecting those chances from the point on power plays. He is creating them in the dirty areas of the ice at full speed against players who are specifically trying to prevent him from getting there. That is a McDavid look. The kind of chance you cannot stop by preparing for it. You just have to hope he misses. Now here's where I want to be honest with you, because this channel does not do pure hype. And I am not going to start today. Schaefer is not a finished product. There are real areas of his game that trail behind his elite peers at the position. And if you are going to compare him seriously to the best defenseman in the world, those gaps deserve to be named clearly. The playmaking numbers are the most honest critique available right now. Schaefer ranks outside the top 250 in passes to the slot this season. He has just 7 primary assists at 5-on-5. For a player whose skating and vision are being compared to the best in the sport, that output from the offensive zone is genuinely limited. Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, Lane Hudson. Their value in the offensive zone is as much about creating elite looks for teammates as it is about scoring themselves. Schaefer has not yet demonstrated that kind of zone playmaking at the NHL level. His shot decision-making from the point also has room to grow. The wrist shot itself is heavy and generates volume, but when he commits to releasing from the point under pressure, there is not a lot of deception built into the motion. Elite point shooters create uncertainty before they release. They make the penalty kill guess. Schaefer's current pattern under pressure is more straightforward. Take the shot, compete for the rebound. That works, and clearly it has been working given the goal total. But against a disciplined penalty kill in a playoff series, that predictability gets exposed. And when he is trapped at the blue line under real pressure from an aggressive forecheck, he does not yet have the elusiveness that Hughes or Makar display to escape and reset possession. He has not found those extra gears in tight spaces that separate the very best offensive defenseman from everyone else. But here's the context that matters most. Connor McDavid at 18 was not the complete player he became at 22. The foundation of what he had was extraordinary, and the refinement came with time and repetition and the specific pressure of playing at the highest level every single night. Schaefer is in that same early stage of that same process. The foundation here is not just good, it is generational. The ceiling question is not whether he can be a very good NHL defenseman. That answer is already yes, and it was yes before December. The ceiling question is, how good can a defenseman actually get? And right now, with what Schaefer is showing at 18, nobody has a clean answer to that. Let us zoom out for a second, because what is happening in Long Island right now is bigger than one player's stats. It is bigger than one team's playoff push. What Matthew Schaefer is doing this season is changing the story of an entire franchise overnight, and that is something that almost never happens this fast and this early. Think about where the New York Islanders were before this season. A team caught between cycles, uncertain about direction, without a clear identity, and without the kind of player who makes opposing coaches nervous before puck drop. That was the reality. And then an 18-year-old walks through the door and the entire calculation shifts. He did not just contribute to this team, he elevated the floor of the entire roster. He made every forward on the ice better by pulling defensive attention toward himself every single shift. He turned neutral zone situations that used to end in dump-ins into genuine offensive opportunities. He gave a franchise something it desperately needed and had not had in years. A reason to believe that the future is not just manageable but actually exciting. The Islanders are sitting in a playoff spot right now. A teenager is a primary reason why. Let that settle for a moment. Now, think about what that reminds you of. In 2015, Connor McDavid arrived in Edmonton. The Oilers were the worst team in hockey. They had been bad for years, the kind of bad that makes fan bases go quiet and arenas feel hollow on a Tuesday night in February. And then McDavid walked in and none of that mattered anymore. Not because the team was suddenly fixed, but because watching him play was worth the price of admission regardless of the score. He made the game feel alive again. He made people care about a franchise that had given them very few reasons to care. That energy, that specific feeling of watching someone do things you genuinely cannot explain and cannot project a ceiling on is exactly what Schaefer is bringing to Long Island right now. And that feeling is rare. It does not come along every few years. It comes along maybe twice in a generation if you are lucky, and right now we are sitting in the middle of it, and most people have not fully registered what they are watching yet. If Schaefer develops into the player his tools suggest he can become, The position of defenseman in this sport will never look quite the same. Teams will draft differently. Development programs will teach skating differently. Coaches will design systems differently because of what he is proving is possible from the blue line. McDavid changed how organizations think about building and deploying elite forwards. Schaefer is beginning to ask the same question about defense, and that is a genuinely historic thing to be watching in real time. Before I close this out, a genuine thank you to everyone who has been riding with Blue Line Bulletin. The comments, the debates, the people who show up every week ready to tell me exactly why I'm wrong about everything. I read all of it, and I mean it when I say it makes every hour of research and editing worth doing. If you dropped a number in the comments at the beginning of this video, go back and check it right now. I want to see where you landed and whether anything in this breakdown changed your answer. And if this is the first video of ours you have ever watched and you made it this far, that tells me everything I need to know about you. Subscribe, you belong here. Now go back and watch that opening play one more time. Schaefer picking up the puck behind his own net, reading the ice in half a second, crossing through the neutral zone like the defense is a suggestion he has chosen to decline. Watch it again now that you know what the crossovers mean. Watch it knowing the vision it requires. Watch it knowing that defensemen simply do not do this. It does not look like talent anymore, does it? It looks like inevitability. 10 years ago, a kid from Ontario walked into the NHL and showed this sport that the ceiling for what a hockey player could be was higher than anyone had imagined. Tonight on Long Island, an 18-year-old is standing at the blue line and asking the exact same question all over again. Do not look away.